And we're live. Hey, if you're planning a trip to Costa Rica and you think your rental car is going to cost you $7 a day, I need you to listen very carefully, because what you see online is not always what you pay once you get to the counter. Now, today, I'm going to tell you which rental car companies operate here in Costa Rica, what's legit, what's questionable, and how to avoid the most common rental car traps in Costa Rica. This could literally save you hundreds of dollars. Now let that sink in. But first, hey, if this is your first time here, welcome to the Unbridled Living in Costa Rica podcast. Hey, I'm Alan, and hey, I have been in Costa Rica since November 2013, lived all over Costa Rica, have been in 25 different locations and houses, and I continue to investigate, traveled all over. But keep in mind, traveling in Costa Rica, living in Costa Rica, totally different. So anyway, today we're going to kind of break it all down and give you the truth about the rental car scam. Okay, so before I break it down, let me ask you a question, okay? If I tell you the same lie, if someone repeats the same lie repeatedly over and over and over and over for years, does that make it true? Okay, let me give you an example. Hey, how many of you probably have heard, you grew up in school and you were told that, hey, whenever you see vultures, well, what's happening? Well, oh, you see vultures. Oh, there's probably something dead there. I mean, I think we've all been told this when we were kids, okay? I mean, it happens today. You're watching TV, my wife and I were watching this Heartland series, and then there's vultures. And then there's a story. Oh, no, one of the horses is dead. Well, just because you see vultures, most of the time, 99% of the time, it doesn't mean something's dead. Now, if you're driving down the road and you see a bunch of vultures on the road, well, guess what? They're picking and eating something dead. But when you see vultures soaring in the air, 99% of the time, it's not because there's anything down there that's dead. It's because they're soaring on thermals. They're just having a good time. But it's that story that we've been told again and again and again since we were kids, and there's no truth to it at all. Investigate, and you'll see that I am right. So let's get back to what I was telling you earlier. If someone tells you a lie again and again and again and again, right, it doesn't make it true. So I'll just break it right down. If I tell you constantly, car rental scam, car rental scam, car rental scam, and I do video after video after video about all these different car rental scams, but I always plug, hey, go to my website, fill out the 4-minute survey, and I'll make sure that you get a proper car rental and you won't get scammed. That happens a lot here in Costa Rica. Not nearly as much anymore because poor Michael Allen, he has passed away. But he and I, at one time, when I thought we were friends, hey, I doing retreats with him, and I said, hey, dude, you're constantly doing these videos on a car rental scam. What's the deal? Oh, well, and he would do these, it sounded very informative. However, he says, oh, they fill out the form, and then I go, I've got connections, with Avis, Budget, and all of them. And so I give it to them, and of course, I get paid a fee. Now, there's nothing wrong with that at all if the information you're giving is true. But if you tell this story about car rental scam, car rental scam, car rental scam, and the reality is that it's not really a car rental scam, but I'm instilling fear. Be careful the car rental scam, right? And if you tell an ounce of truth, that doesn't make the whole video truthful. You're lying. So anyway, the real, write this down, the real car rental scam in Costa Rica are the YouTubers that tell you, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. But by the way, fill out that 4-minute survey and I'll get you a car rental. Okay, that's the real car rental scam. But today I'm going to be talking to you about what's the reality of renting a car in Costa Rica. What should you do so that you don't, I won't say get scammed, but you could get the gringo price. That is common, but that's common with almost anything. So, hey, who are the top players in Costa Rica when we talk about car rentals, okay? Because I came here 12 years ago, okay? And as soon as I got off the plane, went into the airport, rented a car, okay? And the most shocking thing for me 12 years ago is that it was like $100 a day. That's what they were telling me. And I'm like, I ain't paying no $100 a day to rent a car, you know? So I had that car for less than 24 hours. And whenever I got to my location, I bought a motorcycle and turned that car in, okay? Now, another shocking thing is that when I got here, right, and I wanted that car, I think I had minimal insurance that I had to pay. I can't 100% remember, but I think I had minimal insurance. But I know that, you know, they tried pushing and pushing all this other stuff. And I'm like, no, don't need it. And they actually said, well, we have to hold. And I think they held like almost $2,000 on my, and we had used our debit card at the time. So anyway, they held like $2,000. In other words, until I turned that car in, and then after I turned in the car, it would be like 7 days before that $2,000 would be put back. Okay, so they held that in the event there was scratches or damage or something done to the car, then they could take that $2,000. Okay, so anyway, you know, the shocking thing for me was like $100 a day. You know, that's what they were telling me at the airport, and then they held like almost $2,000. Well, the next day, as I told you, I turned it in. I rented at the airport, turned it in at the same brand car rental place. I think it was Enterprise over in Panama. Now, it did cost me extra because I turned it in at a different place than where I picked it up. And that's a drop-off fee. That is normal. So I dropped it off there, and they got to transport it back, okay? I think I ended up paying, I don't know, $50 to $100 for that drop-off fee. So those are the things that are normal. But let's go in. That was my experience, okay? And I've rented cars since, okay? But I can tell you that overall, I haven't had any problem. But the reason I haven't had any problem is because I rent from brands I know, like, and trust. Okay, so that kind of goes back to, you know, Michael Allen telling you not to rent, but you don't rent from these people. Fill out the 4-minute survey from me, but then he turns around and gives it to the exact same people he's telling you not to rent from. Okay, how does that work? Anyway, let's break it down on who's the players. So international brands that you're familiar with, okay? Well, you're familiar with Hertz, Avis, Budget, Enterprise. Those are pretty popular, and you can find them in almost any of the larger cities. You know, they're down in Panama. I think the next one's, you know, there may be some in between, but I know that there's some in Jaco. I know there's some in San Isidro. And, of course, you find a bunch of them in San Jose, and I'm sure up north of that. Okay, so you can find those major brands. If you get those major brands, typically, you're not going to have a problem. But I do need to backtrack because the guys at the airport told me it's going to be $100 a day. When I turned it in, it really was like, I want to say $65 or $75 a day. Why he told me 100, I have no idea. I guess maybe he thought I was going to turn it in there. Maybe he was going to overcharge me. I don't know. Okay, but you know, if you rent from Avis, you know, Hertz, Avis, Budget, Enterprise, and you go to their website, well, the price you see is normally going to be the price you pay, because at that website, you see how much it's going to cost per day. You see, you know, you can decline or not decline. And a lot of places you can't decline the insurance for car rentals in Costa Rica. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be paying this humongous insurance because you have the minimal and then you have this other. And I really don't understand why they make you pay the insurance when every car has the mandatory marchamo. Okay, I don't understand that. They have mandatory marchamo, but I guess they're like, hey, you're from Costa Rica. I mean, you're not from Costa Rica. You're a tourist. We're going to make you pay insurance so they can make more money. Okay. Hey, I don't know what the whole deal is on that. Maybe it's a legit insurance thing. I don't know. I don't think it is. But a lot of times, you know, as Americans or foreigners, we have a credit card and they've like, we'll cover, you know, we'll insure your rental car. But most of the time in Costa Rica, they'll say, oh, your visa, it doesn't apply to Costa Rica. Is it true or not? Well, now that is going to be up to you. You're going to have to contact your insurance or, you know, the people from your credit card and say, look, I'm going to Costa Rica. I'm going to be using this credit card there. Does that insurance for rental cars cover me while I'm in Costa Rica? If it does, well, then you can stand your ground, but that doesn't mean they're going to allow you to have that vehicle without paying for their mandatory car rental. Okay, so I'm just giving you some scenarios there, but letting you know it is very typical for them to really push the mandatory insurance, whereas in the United States we don't have that problem. They're always suggesting and highly recommending that insurance, but you don't have to pay it, because normally your car insurance, everyone has automobile insurance and it covers rental cars, okay, for the most part, if you have a good insurance company. So anyway, if you stick with the international brands, typically you're not going to have a problem. Typically, the price you see online is the price you're going to get when you get there, okay? Now, here's the deal that you might run into. If you come to Costa Rica and you use one of their local brands, okay, well, here's one of their local brands. You got Alamo Rent-A-Car, and really, I don't think Alamo is a local brand. They're here, and they got Adobe and Vamos. Well, I would never use a local car rental, okay, not unless I personally knew the owner and rented a whole lot, because they got different things, and so, but here's what you want to be very careful of, okay? So when you're renting with a local company, here's where you're going to run into a few traps, okay, a few problems. With a local company, they can really make up the rules as they go. It's a local company, okay? That's fair game. That's their business, all right? But they also going to quote the price to you in dollars, which means the conversion is going to be high, and you want to always, when you're in Costa Rica, pay in colones, okay? The price is always going to be better for you, okay? So here's the problem whenever, this thing that you hear all the time, you go to this third-party website, okay, and it says $5 a day or $6 a day on Expedia, Kayak. You think, man, you got a deal, dude. That is where you could call that a real scam, and it's not a real scam, because Expedia and Kayak, they never put the actual price. What they're saying is, we have some cars that are $6 a day, but then when you get to go and look at it, you don't never find a car of $6 a day. That car is always gone, or they're giving you the very minimal of minimals, okay? But if you're really going to get a car, it's going to be $27 a day, $35 a day, $40 a day, okay? So always, I guess I should say, never rent a vehicle from third-party places like Expedia and Kayak. You're going to get beat up every time, okay? So that's where you're really going to run into problems, okay? So here's the thing that you need to be sure of. When you arrive, find out, let's say that you're one of the major brands and you're filling out the online form. Double check, triple check, what's the mandatory liability insurance? Do I have to have collision? Most of the time you don't, but expect deposit holds. It's not uncommon. They're going to hold money and airport fees and taxes, okay? So you're not going to get away from any of that, all right? Now, this is not even a legit scam, because, when they say $6 a day, they're saying $6 a day. You'll never get that car for $6 a day. But then it's $6 a day at the very minimum. It's kind of like when you rent at Airbnb. The Airbnb is $25, but then by the time you check out, it's $35, because now you got the Airbnb, then you got this cleaning room fee, then you got the Airbnb fee, and so the whole total ends up being more than what you. And so you're looking at all these places. Oh wow, this place is only $15, but then their cleaning room fee is $15, which is now $30. You see, it goes back to that same thing of not telling the whole truth. Well, if you don't tell the whole truth, you're lying. You're conning people. And that's what, in my opinion, that's what Expedia and places like that, Kayak, they're not telling the whole truth. They're giving you the bare minimum. Here's a rental car for $6 a day. Now, if you want tires, that's extra. Well, I can't rent a car without tires. Oh, yeah, but that's extra, Anyway, that reminds me, how many people remember, this was years ago, you buy a brand new car and you go get the car, and I'm like, hey, man, I just want just the car. I don't need all this luxurious stuff. And they actually showed me a car without a bumper. I'm like, well, dude, this car don't have a bumper. Oh, yeah, if you want a bumper, well, that's going to be $130 more. I'm like, what? do you sell a car without a bumper? Right. So anyway, I have seen some stuff in my day. If you remember that, hey, give me a shout out in the comments. Which, by the way, while we're chatting, make sure that you comment, be engaging, leave your comments, leave your questions, and I'll be sure at the end of the podcast to go back and try to answer your questions. Okay. All right. So yeah, anyway, I've seen lots of funny stuff, but you just really, when you come to Costa Rica can be fabulous, but you got to use a lot of street savvy, common sense. You got to shop with your eyes wide open. Okay. You got to be careful. So anyway, really what you see is not what you're going to get unless you go to usually to these big brands. All right. Now, let me take a look at some of my notes right here. In Costa Rica, for the most part, okay, third-party liability insurance is mandatory, and supposedly you can't legally waive that. So expect that, yeah, you might be at one of the big brands like Hertz, Avis, Budget, but normally if you're one of those big brands and it will show you where you're picking up your vehicle. I'm picking up in Costa Rica. Well, if it's mandatory for insurance, then it should show up on the website. Okay. But it's been a long time since I've rented a car. Have they updated that stuff or not? I really couldn't tell you. So my deal is to share, my experience, my perspective, my knowledge. Okay. But, if I don't know, I'm not going to make up a story for you. Okay. So it's really, really important, especially if you're talking face to face to them. You want to know the total out the door price before you ever sign a contract. Okay. Now, here's a couple of key points. And this is what I do everywhere. Okay. I did this when I went to the Philippines and rented a vehicle for a month. Okay. As soon as you get that vehicle and you finally decide, the out the door price. Okay. You get out there to the vehicle with the agent, and you get out your camera, you take picture and you take video of everything around that vehicle. Every little spot, you make sure to point out every little tick, every little scratch, and you make them write it down on the thing, because if you don't, when you come back, that money that they're holding, if it's a dishonest guy, you will get charged for it. Okay. So you do need to be very careful. Now, a couple of the other things, some of them are really trying to be helpful, or maybe they're not trying to be helpful. They're trying to push more on you. It's the upsell. Okay. So some of the upsells, of course, is going to be like, take a look. Let me come through here because I got it in my notes here. Some of the upsells is like the whole fuel charge. Hey, do you want the fuel package? You don't have to worry about filling it up, man. Don't have to stop. We'll fill it up. Never get the fuel package, right? Because the fuel package is going to cost you double what the fuel actually cost. All right. So you have several of these things. It's like, do you want the internet? Do you want this? Say no to everything else. Just get the car. Because there's going to be cases and situations where, do you want if you run into a problem, do you want I'm trying to think of the name of what it's called, but where they supposedly come out and take care of you. Don't buy any extra, because they're supposed to come out and take care of you regardless if you have a problem with the rental car. Okay. So that's what I would do. But, when you get to Costa Rica, here's what is really important. First, ask yourself, okay, coming to Costa Rica, what's your purpose to coming to Costa Rica? Are you actually coming down here because you're looking around and you're scouting to see where you want to live at? Okay, well, if you're scouting around to see where you're going to live at, you probably need a rental car, and you're going to go driving around and you're going to check out this and check out that. But if you come into Costa Rica and you're like, hey, man, we're just tourists, we booked this B&B, or we booked this hotel, or we booked this resort for a week, and we're just going to have a ball. And so we're just going to rent a car. So we have a rental car from the airport to Estorils or Jaco, and then we're going to drive it back. Well, you're probably not going to drive anywhere. And with public transportation, you probably don't need a rental car. So why spend $1,000 to have a rental car for a week when really you don't need it? You just, as soon as you get to the airport, you get you a bus, right? You can get the Uber to take you to the bus station. The Uber takes you to the bus station. You get to the bus station, you buy a ticket. It's going to cost you about 4,000 colones. For me, when I go from San Jose, or if I go from here, San Jose, so San Isidro, Perez Zeledon to San Jose, cost me about 4,000 colones. Okay, 4,000 colones, $16. No, $8. Okay, 4,000 colones, $8, and I can ride the bus. It's going to take me about 3.5 hours, but I can ride the bus in comfort, no worries, no stress, no traffic problems for me. And I get at the bus stop. I can take another local bus to the airport. I can take an Uber. Easier for me, just take an Uber to take me to the airport. So really, if you're not going to be traveling around, you're just here enjoying Costa Rica, the beach, the surf, hey, you really can just get an Uber. And what minimal traveling you might do, get an Uber down to the store if you want to buy something, walk to the store, that kind of stuff. A lot of times you don't even need a rental car. Some of these resorts and hotels have shuttles, and you can just use the shuttle from the airport to the hotel. That'll save you a ton of money. So real important here is that when you get here, when you book directly with the company. Avoid third party, too good to be true rates. Okay, confirm the insurance in writing. Use a major credit card. Try not to use your debit card, okay? And bring enough card with an available limit. Because if you come down here and you only got a limit of $2,000 for your car, and it's going to cost you $1,000 for the week, and then they're going to hold $1,500 to $2,000. Now you stuck, right? What do you do now, right? So you got to make sure that you got a credit card that's got enough of a limit, okay? So inspect your vehicle thoroughly. Make sure that everything is good to go, and then understand the fuel policy. From my experience in Costa Rica, most of the time when I got a car, it was full or really close to full, and I needed to make sure it was the same, okay? What I thought was kind of strange is when I was in the Philippines and rented a car, well, the car was like halfway, and I expected it to be full. And they're like, just return it back at halfway. And I'm like, that's stupid. But anyway, that's just the way they did things. And for the most part, in Costa Rica, I think it was generally full, but, things may have changed. Okay. So anyway, for me, hey, just check and see, do you really need a car rental? Maybe not. You can go around with an Uber. But hey, if you do your research, and even if you do rent a car, if you rent a car, let me throw in, make sure you get a true 4x4. In most cases, probably none of you are going to go to some place like where I live at, and it's really, really, really rough. But Costa Rica has a lot of 4x4 roads, okay? And, these all-drive vehicles, while they can make it, they could burn up, okay? Especially if you're not familiar with how to use them. So make sure that you get a true 4x4, because if you don't, well, then you have some of the most amazing waterfalls and hiking trails and bird trails, but you need a 4x4 to get there, okay? Hardly ever do you get on a blacktop road and then you pull up at a waterfall. That just don't happen in Costa Rica. You end up you need a good 4x4, and really depending on the time of the year. Now, here's a common mistake. Most people think, dude, we're getting down there in the rainy season. We really going to need us a good 4x4. Well, the fact is that in the rainy season, that's when the roads are the best. We typically think from the United States, man, it's a lot of slick roads. They're muddy and you're slipping and you're spinning out. Well, in Costa Rica, the terrain, especially where the roads are, full of rocks. So seldom is it slippery like we think about when we're in the United States. Typically, the problem is summertime. Summertime, hardly any rain. Right now, the dirt roads are more dangerous now than they are in the winter. That's because in the winter, all the roads driving pack everything down. And so you got this really packed, gravel road, boulder road, okay? And in the summertime, it's dry. So the cars going up and down the hills, they're spinning out, they're turning. And what they're doing is they're loosening the soil. They're loosening the soil. They're loosening the soil. And so when you're going up the road, you end up spinning out a whole lot more. And it's more dangerous in the summertime. You're spinning out a whole lot more, especially if you don't have 4x4, than you do in the winter time. So that's just a plus, okay, that you need to know, because a lot of people say, man, wintertime must be bad on this road. Wintertime is a lot better, okay? So just giving you something to think about. All right, so now Eduardo throws in a little bonus. Says, hey, Jimmy, Jeeps are great. And really just about any vehicle that's got 4x4 are great. These little Jimmy Jeeps are pretty nifty and pretty nice because they're lightweight and normally 4x4, okay? But anyhow, now, hey, Reckon brings in a really valid point, okay? If you're mechanically inclined, check all of your fluids. We had low oil, coolant, and etc., and it happens a lot. And absolutely, it does happen a whole lot. I see it all the time. There's people, you know, Ticos, they're most, not saying something bad about Ticos, you know, in the United States, we've been driving forever. Our grandfather, great-grandfather, we've been driving forever. For a lot of Tico families, he might be the first person ever to have a car, okay? Because there's still a lot of Ticos. And I would say, I don't know, I can't say half, I don't know what the percentage is, but there's still a lot of Tico families don't have a car. It's expensive to have a car. And so they haven't been taught, they haven't been trained that, hey, check your fluids. And so you'll see brand new cars because they haven't checked their fluids. It's low on water. And then all of a sudden it's burned up going up the mountain. And so I see brand new cars on the side of the road broke down because they just fail to check the air in the tires, check your fluids, check all of that stuff, because if it burns up on you, you guarantee you're going to have to pay for it. So make sure you do check your fluids. Glad that you brought that up, Reckon, okay? All right, so now Barco brings out, and maybe he's got personal experience. He says U.S. auto policies will not cover liability. Good travel cards will cover physical damage to the vehicle only. So maybe this is what he throws in. I can't verify any facts or truth to that. I've never had to use it, okay? But thanks, Barco, for throwing that in. Now, Reckon says that we get private rentals with zero issues, $1,200 a month. And I feel like that's a good deal. Hey, I can tell you from, you know, the times that I've rented a vehicle, $1,200 a month, great deal. So Reckon, if you want to share who it is that you get your private rentals from, feel free to share it in there. I always tell people, don't you go advertising your crap down here, you know, on my Facebook group or whatever. But hey, I'm telling you, if you want to share who it is you get your private rental for, I always like, if it's a good deal, I want to share it with my folks. I don't make money on it, and I'm not doing a rental. Avoid the Costa Rica rental car scam. Fill out the 4-minute survey on my website, and I'll hook you up. Okay. So anyway, if you want to share that, Reckon, please do. So JR is saying the information you're given about car rentals in the USA is not accepted in Costa Rica. For example, the insurance. So that's what I was telling you here. When I rented a vehicle, you know, they were pretty absolutely positive. Your car insurance in the United States is not going to cover you here in Costa Rica. And I felt pretty certain about that, but I couldn't verify it. JR is saying that. And Eduardo is saying what I've already told you. Sometimes you don't need to rent a car. Just take the bus where you're going and then find a good driver. An Uber can take you anywhere that you want. Save a ton of money, okay? Hey, and a shout out to Uncle Chico. Greatly appreciate you. Uncle Chico loves to support us, and he does that by simply clicking that $ in the comments. He says rental vehicles are not worth the trouble these days. And hey, you know, I can agree with you there, especially when it's very, very easy to get around with public transportation. However, you know, if you're coming down here and you're like, I'm looking for a house Oh, sorry, we were buffering for just a moment. But as I was saying is, hey, if you're going to be if you're looking for houses, going to look at a few or looking for property, it's probably worth it to get a vehicle so that you're not, because you will waste a lot of time if you're trying to do public transportation. You just got to have time to waste. Barco says, JR is spot on. I work in insurance and there is zero liability and physical damage coverage from U.S. policies in Costa Rica. Your insurer will confirm if you call them. So make sure that you give them a call, because where he works at, zero liability and physical coverage from U.S. policies, okay? So make sure that you are aware before you come down here. Uncle Chico shares that he just came back from Mexico and the Cancun airport, and the police were watching for the rental vehicles coming back to return them. And they were stopping these people to scam them for some money. Yeah, it does happen in a lot of different places. Hey, I got scammed when I was in the Philippines by the local police there. So hey, in almost every country, you're going to find corrupt people. So I was driving through there, and I was coming around a corner when the police pulls me over, and he pulls me over, and I mean he was walking and flags me over, and so telling me that I'm going the wrong way on a one way, and I'm clearly not. But anyway, but I can make this go away, and it's going to cost you 2,000 pesos, something like that. And that's what I ended up paying, 2,000 pesos or something stupid. And he never gave me a ticket. It was really nothing. And it was just, okay, here's your 2,000 pesos, go away. And I drove away. So, hey, you do have to be careful. Thanks for sharing that, Uncle Chico. So, hey, if you got some questions, you got some comments, you want to share your experience, hey, please do. But for the most part, if you will stay with the major rental people, you're not going to get scammed. So in my honest opinion, there is no scam. Can you pay too much? Could you get the gringo price? Absolutely. Okay. Can you get scammed? Sure, if you listen to the YouTubers or the people that are lying to you so that they can get a commission. Nothing wrong with getting a commission if you do it honestly. But if you're dishonest and you're just instilling fear, that's the problem. Okay, that's the problem. So really, come to Costa Rica. You don't have to go looking for devils out there. They'll find you. Okay, but it's always good to have some good common sense. Be careful about what you're doing. I've been here for 12 years. I absolutely love Costa Rica. It was a huge challenge for me to really adapt to the culture here. I still haven't adapted to the culture, but I accept the culture, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I accept, respect the culture. But dude, if you park behind me and I'm trapped, I'm going to chew your butt out whenever you come out. Okay. Because that makes no sense, right? Don't park. That's having no respect. That's having zero thinking about anybody. You park behind me because you think you're going to be in there for 5 minutes, and now I'm trapped and I can't go anywhere. And you making me late for what I'm doing. So anyway, my point is the culture is different. It does take some time to kind of take a chill pill, relax, because it is different in Costa Rica. It's a very different culture. Not saying that's a bad thing. It's a lot of the culture. It's a very good thing. Very family oriented. They're very laid back. But being very laid back also means that they're lazy. Okay, not all of them, but some of them are. So you got to be careful. Now, Barco says, hey, their number one tip is don't take a rental car out of San Jose in the dark after a long day of travel. Get a day or two later. Not quite sure what he is saying there, so maybe you can clarify that, Barco. But number one tip is don't take a rental car out of San Jose in the dark after a long day of travel. I can tell you that when I came here, we flew in. The plane arrived like at 10. By the time we went through getting our bags and all that stuff, it was almost midnight when we got our rental car. Completely unfamiliar with the streets, didn't know where we were going. And so absolutely the traffic lights weren't working, you know, and those that were working, there was no traffic. When I finally got the rental car and I'm stopping at the traffic light waiting for it to turn green, I mean, there was no traffic. Then the cars behind me is blowing their horn and going around me through, you know, running the light. It just was common. So, hey, yeah, if you've been traveling all day flying, you're tired, and you get a rental car, it's probably best to get you a B&B, get that rental car and leave the next morning, because, hey, that's what I did. And I did, I don't know how many circles, because there wasn't a lot of traffic signs. It's a little better today, 12 years later. But when I got here, I'm like, how in the world do I get out of the city? I had no clue. And after making about 3 circles in San Jose, I finally pulled over to Denny's. I'm like, we didn't pass this same Denny's 3 times, pulled in there, and I had a guy hand draw a map. Of course, you know, I looked all over, couldn't buy a map. Okay. So, and at that time, they didn't have digital navigation on phones at that time. It was still very, very new. So anyway, and of course, you know, and Barco says it's just not a good idea to drive in the dark when you're tired and you're new in San Jose, but to each his own. And I agree completely. Costa Rica, the number one thing you need to know about driving, if you don't have to drive in the dark, don't do it. Don't do it. You know, the roads are not lit up like you're used to in the United States. There's not a lot of lights. A lot of places don't have paint at all. And when I say paint, no, you know, there's white lines on the shoulders, yellow line in the center. A lot of places don't have white lines, or they're very, very faded. And then if you're in the rainy season and it's raining, dude, it's raining so hard you can't even see the road and the shoulders disappear. Man, it can be extremely, extremely dangerous. So if you don't have to drive at night, don't, because a lot of the drivers, you know, in the United States, you can have auxiliary lights, but dude, you better not have those auxiliary lights on when you're driving at night, you know, with other people. That's against the law. Costa Rica, they'll have those auxiliary lights on, have their brights on, and you're flashing your lights, so they turn them off, and they don't. They just keep right on driving. So you're both driving blind, okay? So you do got to be very, very careful. Yeah, Reckon says that's what we do every time. You know, when they're leaving Vancouver, Victoria, British Columbia to San Jose, it's like 20 hours, and they just with all the layovers. Sounds like to me, hey, first night they get here, get a B&B, the next day, then drive to where they're going, and that's very wise to do. So anyway, that's really the information I have for you when it comes to car rentals. Really, it's not that bad. But if you got anything else, you got any other questions, you have more questions about car rentals, hey, ask. And if I can give you that information, I'll be more than glad to tell you. I know for me, you know, when I rented the cars, I just stick with the main brands and I never have any problems. Okay. And so you shouldn't have any problems either. It is a little more expensive to rent here in Costa Rica than it is in the United States, because in the United States, you know, you got all the competition and everyone's trying to get the traffic, everyone's trying to get the customer, so you can get cars in the United States a whole lot cheaper. Hey, JR brings up a really good point. Don't forget the reductors that you cannot see in the daylight as the paint has faded. So if you don't know what the reductors are, dude, it's this speed bump. And some of these speed bumps, they come out of nowhere. The speed bumps typically are supposed to be all painted yellow, but in most places it's faded. You don't see them. And look, usually those speed bumps are coming up, and I'm talking, they're on the main highway. So you're coming up the speed bump and it's like, pow! I'm like, oh man, you feel like you just lost a couple of tires back there, okay? And and a lot of times there's not even signs for the reductors, okay? So in some places, I've noticed that they started putting really thick paint on the roads. And so when you're driving over what feels like a cattle gap instead of a great big reductor. I hope they're getting rid of the speed bumps and going to that, because I have seen those here recently in the last year, you know, and usually the reductors, the speed bumps are going to be where the school zones are at, maybe where a church is at, place where there's a lot of walk-in traffic. So yes, I'm glad you brought that up, JR. Those reductors, man, you can lose an axle in a heartbeat, boy. So you got to be really watching for those. Barco says, how do you think Adobe compares to major U.S. companies? You know, I really couldn't compare. I have not rented enough from them to give you an honest opinion. Really couldn't tell you. So unfortunately, I can't answer that question. Now, Eduardo brings up a good question that hey, I should probably answer. I hadn't thought about. Some of you thinking, well, hey, can I drive in Costa Rica? Do I need a Costa Rica driver's license to drive in Costa Rica? No, you don't. Okay, so you can drive with your United States driver's license so long as it's not expired. Okay, and now, of course, you know, most of you here, you're traveling. If you come in, you're going to get 180 days. Costa Rica wants you to stay as long as possible so you can spend as much money as possible. But of course, if you stay more than 180 days, you're going to have to stamp out and stamp back in. Okay. Otherwise, you know, you can get in trouble. And after that 180 days, you can't legally drive in Costa Rica. So, all right. So, hey, if you have rented a car in Costa Rica and you had a bad experience, well, put a number 1 in the chat box. Let me know. You put in bad. Okay. If you didn't, if you had a great experience or you had no problems, put in NP, man. You didn't have no problems renting a car. I'd like to hear your input, right? Share your story. You know, I've heard I've gotten tired of seeing the rental car scam videos when there really isn't a rental car scam. There's not really a scam. Now, if you end up renting from, you know, these third-party websites, you know, like Kayak and stuff, you might feel like you're getting scammed, right? But you have to understand they're giving you just the minimum info. All right, folks. Well, hey, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of interaction. It looks like I've answered all your questions. Hey, if you don't have any other questions, any last-minute questions, I'll call it a day. And by the way, I want to shout out to Barco. I think it was Barco. I'm almost certain it was that he left a comment on the channel and it said, hey, on your next live, I'd like to hear your take on the car rental situation. So anyway, and I was like, hey, that is definitely a good topic. So I put aside the topic I was going to talk about car rental. So if you've got something that you've been wondering about and you can't seem to get accurate information about it, send me a comment. And folks, after this show is over, please comment. Hit that like button and let me know, you know, what is it you want to hear? Let me know what you thought about the show. You know, are you getting valuable information? Because, hey, I do all of this for free. It's the only channel not trying to sell you Costa Rica so you can buy more of my product and services. I actually don't have anything to sell you, okay? So, hey, if you need anything, please let me know. We'll see you next Sunday, same time, same station, same channel, at the Unbridled Living in Costa Rica podcast. All right, folks, thanks for being here. I'll see you next week. Maybe. Ooh, no, I'm not. I'm traveling next week. Canceling next week. I forgot about that. Just remembered. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. See ya.